The outgoing Joe Biden administration has been unusually active in recent weeks, making significant decisions with long-term implications. These include lifting certain long-range missile restrictions on Ukraine for deep striking into Russia and imposing stricter trade measures on China, with whom the US remains locked in multi-dimensional geopolitical competition. The structural effects of these moves will become evident in 2025 and beyond. Just to give you an example, as recently as early December, the Joe Biden administration delivered its third major blow to China's semiconductor industry. This effort seeks to curtail China's ability to access and produce advanced chips or semiconductors that could support artificial intelligence for military purposes or pose risks to the United States' national security. Now, for India, these developments are not merely a geopolitical spectacle, but they also hold direct strategic relevance. Beyond observing this unfolding competition, New Delhi has an opportunity to assess its own role in helping the US build resilience in semiconductor production and supply chains amid the intensifying chip war. So, what is this chip checkers? The US has maintained dominance in the semiconductor industry since Silicon Valley pioneered the technology. I'm sure all of you know what the Silicon Valley is. Over time, however, East Asian nations such as Taiwan, Japan, and South Korea, and especially Taiwan, emerged as key manufacturing hubs incentivized by government subsidies. As Chris Miller highlights in his insightful and I would say highly recommended book, Chip Wars, the Fight for the World's Most Critical Technology, this evolution allowed the United States to establish critical business and strategic alliances in a region vulnerable to Russian influence during the Cold War, or let me say the Soviet influence during the Cold War. In the current Cold War-style rivalry, often called Cold War 2.0, which was unfolding between the US and China, these alliances remain crucial in countering Beijing's ambitions for a unipolar Asia. And hope you remember that India is committed to preventing a unipolar Asia and keep it multipolar, emerging as a pole itself. Now, coming back, China, while not a leader in manufacturing advanced semiconductors, holds a commanding position in the production and supply of critical rare earth minerals, accounting for almost 70% of global output. Now, these minerals are essential for creating integrated circuits, or the ICs, used in chips for civilian and military purposes. And as the demand for chips goes on increasing, so does their dependence on critical minerals. Now, in retaliation to the recent US export restrictions, which have just come, China has banned exports of key minerals such as gallium, germanium, and antimony, while tightening control over graphite exports. Now, this retaliation has further complicated global supply chains for chips. All these banned minerals by China are essential components in making integrated circuits of chips for both civilian as well as military applications. So, does that give China an upper hand? No. Despite its dominance in rare earth mining, China's position is not unassailable. Why do I say so? There are mainly two reasons. One is that even if China remains the first, it is the US that is the second largest producer of rare earth minerals globally. And the second reason is that China relies on US technology to process these minerals into complex semiconductors with what we call game-changing capabilities. And that Chinese dependence is what the Biden administration's efforts aim at, which is to prevent China from independently developing technology to control other parts of the semiconductor supply chain. Now, while the Trump 1.0 administration adopted a hawkish stance on China, which became so famous with respect to trade wars, etc., it was the Biden administration that really took robust measures to restrict Beijing's access to semiconductor technology. Now, the three concerted efforts made by Biden as latest as December 2024, I just told you about, these have landed the first grand shift in the US semiconductor approach or the US semiconductor geopolitics after the 1990s. So it's pretty watershed. What plays in the US's favor is that China depends on foreign hardware and expertise to enhance its chip production capabilities, although, as I told you, China dominates the critical mineral mining and production cycles. Now, indeed, if you understand this closely, this shows a rather fragile balance of dependencies. Now, before I turn to India, which I have to, no conversation on chips can be complete without Taiwan. Taipei remains central to the global semiconductor industry with its dominant chip maker, TSMC. I'm sure all of you have heard of this. And TSMC stands for Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. And TSMC supplies a significant share of the world's semiconductors. Taiwanese president has described this dominance as a silicon shield. And this silicon shield offers a degree of protection to Taiwan against China, which claims sovereignty over Taiwan. And this tussle is at the heart of tensions in the Indo-Pacific. However, from the US perspective, Taiwan's chip dominance also creates a kind of a vulnerability to supply chains disruptions, particularly as cross-strait tensions rise. So in case there is a war in the Taiwan Straits, what then happens to all the chips that Taiwan is supplying to the US? Now, to mitigate this very risk, the Biden administration has passed the CHIPS and Science Act in 2022, pledging nearly $53 billion worth of dollars to boost US semiconductor manufacturing. As expected, this move raised concerns in Taiwan about reduced American commitment to its defense in case of a Chinese attack. But then TSMC quickly responded by investing about $40 billion in its first manufacturing plants outside Taiwan, located in the US. So it would be fair to say that the chip struggle continues, and we can assess the contours of how it will play out in next year and beyond. So Biden efforts to reduce dependence on China's rare earth capabilities and bolster supply chain resilience go beyond the CHIPS Act. Two notable initiatives highlight the broader strategy. First is the US-India Semiconductor Fabrication Agreement. In September 2024, the US and India signed a groundbreaking fabrication agreement aimed at expanding and diversifying the global semiconductor ecosystem. Now, under this partnership, Bharat Semi, 30 Tech, and the US Space Force joined forces to transfer critical technologies to India as part of the India Semiconductor Mission. So these technologies focus on manufacturing infrared gallium nitride and silicon carbide semiconductors, which are all complex semiconductors, by the way. And these are essential for both national security and commercial applications. Now, this collaboration between the US and India has led to the creation of Shakti, India's first semiconductor fabrication plant and the first of its kind within the Quad framework, which is a group of 4 countries, I hope you know, US, India, Japan, and Australia. Now, the multi-material fab, which is short for fabrication plant, is designed to support modern warfare capabilities such as advanced sensing, communications, and high-voltage power electronics. And it will also address commercial sector needs. Now, obviously, it signifies a major milestone in India's semiconductor ambitions and the US commitment to diversifying its chip supply chain. Sounds too good to be true, right? I'll come back with a few reality bites later. The second is the Lobito Corridor and West Africa re-engagement. The US has sought to re-engage with Africa through the Lobito Corridor, a key railroad project backed by the Group of 7 or the G7's PGII, Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment, and this project connects Angola to the port of Lobito. Now, since it's a G7 initiative, it is supported by the US as well as the European Union and aims to enhance Western access to critical minerals like cobalt while reducing reliance on Chinese supply chains. The Lobito project spans Angola, Zambia, and DRC, or the Democratic Republic of Congo, encouraging Western companies, particularly miners, to increase their presence in these mineral-rich regions. Now, for the record, and I'll connect Lobito to the Indian audience's perspective, this Lobito Corridor is the lesser-known connectivity initiative of the PGII. Its wider known but currently stalled cousin is the IMEC corridor, which is about linking India to Europe via the Middle East. Now, both projects may face potential delays due to challenges in securing de-risked financing for critical investments. But despite this, the outlook for Lobito remains positive, bolstered by Biden's recent visit to Africa. Biden went to Africa this month only to strengthen ties with key nations along the corridors, the three key nations. Now, while IMEC is still up in the air, US agencies have already provided funding for the first phase of Lobito's upgrade, while European nations have committed additional support during the project's latter phase, launched in October 23. American firms are also stepping up investment. For instance, Cobalt Metals, which leverages AI for critical mineral exploration, recently signed an MOU with the AFC, or the Africa Finance Corporation. Now, India, which is already a signatory to the IMEC, has another opportunity here to deepen its engagement in Africa through investments in the Lobito corridor as well, because I told you that it's right now open for investments. Africa, if you remember, has been a key focus under Prime Minister Modi, with instruments like lines of credit and triangular development partnerships with European countries such as with France, with Germany, Italy, etc., already in place. The corridor represents a promising avenue for India to bolster friendshoring of investments and contribute to alternative supply chains for semiconductors, which without a doubt is the cornerstone of the digital future. And now, like I said, time for some reality bites. All of this will depend on timing and implementation. The success of these initiatives hinges on effective implementation. While agreements are significant, tangible results depend on actions taken on the ground. Skeptics in India and also in the US have expressed doubts over US commitment, citing challenges in the bilateral relationship despite shared concerns about China and Indo-Pacific. Also, India's preference of eating the cake and having it too when it comes to demanding critical technology transfers alongside infrastructure development and job creation in India is likely to come in the way of Trump's pitch for Make America Great Again. So you have Make America Great Again versus Make in India. And the challenge in the coming years would be to reconcile that. But despite these differences, it cannot be overstated that India's pursuit of a multipolar Asia and Indo-Pacific requires active collaboration with like-minded nations that have the same threat perception, or at least similar threat perceptions. Building resilient, complex semiconductor supply chains is a critical part of this effort, as dominance in the emerging digital order will shape both the global security order and the global economic order. Shakti Fab and the Lobito Corridor both offer India strategic opportunities to play a vital role in this broader geopolitical realignment as we chart ahead into a fresh year. I will be back to track the implementation bit of these strategic agreements and plans, because that is where the real change starts. Stay tuned.